And welcome everybody to Live at the Hive, episode 228 of Live at the Hive, Digital Marketing from the Trenches. I'm your host, Dan Nedelko, and this week we've got a very special guest, Anka Wimbush from Buckland Logistics, where we're going to be talking today about selling complex B2B services, how to create relationships, how to use social selling, how to use content to become a thought leader, to foster relationships, and how to keep those relationships healthy and keep them happy after the fact. So not just getting new clients in the door when you're selling complex B2B solutions, but how to keep those clients retained and happy. Anka, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So just for everyone out there, I was out in the middle of Algonquin Park for a few days, paddling and hiking. I may have lost my voice slightly, so hopefully I don't sound too much like a raspy chipmunk, but we will get through it. And if you're watching live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or LinkedIn, please feel free to hit that like, subscribe, and Anka's got years and years, decades of knowledge in the B2B account management space. Feel free to drop any questions into the comments. We're here to answer them. And if we can't answer them, we'll forward them to Anka for her insights as well.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So thanks for joining us once again, Anka. Maybe we can just start with, because I think, one of the things with logistics is you hear about it, but it's this kind of fuzzy, nebulous thing out there. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about, what logistics is. And at Buckland, it sounds like you traverse a pretty wide range of types of businesses. So yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yes, thanks, Dan. Yeah, so I've been with Buckland going on 25 years this year. And we are located out of St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada. We are all over. We're in Michigan and also Windsor and in Laredo, El Paso. So we offer the services of customs brokerage is one of our main components. So we do Canada, US, and Mexico. And we also provide the freight piece of it as well. And it's any mode of transportation, be it air, ocean, truck, rail. So we look after all of North America and offer many different services, warehousing, distribution. So it's the whole package with us.
Mm-hmm. So everything from importing from a foreign country to manufacturing, warehousing it, making sure that you get that package to your either retail store and potentially to the consumer as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot of also like warehouse distribution. So we would bring goods into Canada or Michigan, wherever your final destination is. And then we would make sure that the customs clearance is done. And then we can further it on to the customer. The goods we can have multiple consolidated shipments come into a warehouse. We can do a pick and pack and then do up the labels and send it off to your customer.
Wow. So explain maybe, just a couple of examples of the ranges of types of businesses that you service in this whole process.
Yeah, we're fortunate enough that we love to handle any. There's not a small account. We have being in St. Thomas and it's a small town, we have very dear customers that are local, like a little retail shop. So, for example, they order from all over the US and different countries. And sometimes, companies don't want to ship to Canada, and we wanted to see how can we help our customer, be able to sell those products in their store in Canada. So our solution was, why don't we consolidate all of the freight in Michigan? Okay, so it would be, the final destination for the shipper would be the United States. Our truck would go across. It goes every day, and it can, as often as they need it. We would take all those shipments, clear them into Canada, bring them into our warehouse, right? Or do the final delivery to them. And now they can have all the products that they've ordered and wanted to that they couldn't before.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And then also to the big international companies, say, and obviously we can't name names, but in the automotive space, what does that look like on that side of things?
Yes, the automotive. It is a huge industry, obviously, because of how we have many manufacturing plants here in Canada. So we have many automotive companies, and what we're doing is importing all the parts that are coming onto assembly lines. These are just in time parts. It is very quick, and the volume is tremendous. You can imagine trying to keep enough parts coming into a plant for production going on 24/7. So we understand, the complexity and the urgency. When a line is down, it costs them money. And as a broker, you don't want to be the cause of that. So a lot of stress, but we have so many good people and processes in place and technology that we're able to, exceed the expectations.
That's amazing. So we're focused on the sales and marketing side, and then you just mentioned it. I would imagine, especially with larger ones, you've got a substantial team that's involved here with execution. On the side of your role as national accounts manager, maybe give us a little bit of insight into what your team on the sales side and then the client management side looks like. And then we'll roll into some of the clever things that you've come up with in terms of social selling and content and all the good stuff that we like to talk about.
Yeah, that's a good question, Dan. Pretty much my job is split between that. It's either, selling and getting, winning the bid of an RFQ, or, reaching out and actually making the sale. But it doesn't end there for an account manager. We want to continue the growth of the company. We want to make sure that the transition went nicely and that they are happy, that they'll stay, right? The social part of selling, when it gets to the sales piece, is that I'm not the type of salesperson that, pounds the pavement and knocks on doors. I take a little more of a subtle effect. So, for example, if our marketing team is posting something on LinkedIn, I'm just going to share it. Or they posted something on Twitter, I'm going to just resend it, So that way my name is getting out there. And many times, there'll be a potential client that'll send me a private message and go, hey, I just saw that post. It was really interesting about the backlog of China containers, or there's a flood out in BC that we had, or whatever question. I may not be their customer or, their broker, but because my feed just came up, they had a question because they were interested in that industry.
Yeah, well, no, the one thing I love about what you're talking about is, especially on the sales side, social selling is a hot topic. Using things like video and engagement, and I feel like one of the things that holds people back is the complexity. It seems like this amazingly complicated thing that they have to subscribe to additional services to do. When in fact, when we were talking initially, I think one of the things is this very simple and subtle approach of building a network over time, taking snackable pieces of content and continuously sharing them in a way that isn't too pushy or pressing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with you there. And it has to be subtle. I personally don't like annoying salespeople because it's a turnoff, right?
For sure.
So, you can go on our website, www.buckland.com, and we have a bunch of learning items there that you can go. You have free podcasts to listen to, basic ones, Customs 101. What does that mean? We have webinars that explain, what does it mean to import into Canada? What do I have to do? So we give you those tools, and all you have to do is just put in your email address and it'll get emailed to you. Well, now we have the email address. So marketing would come to me and say, hey, Anka, somebody just downloaded an article or a webinar or podcast. And I just very subtly just send them an email. So, hey, thank you for coming to our website. If you have any questions after you've listened to it or watched the webinar, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. It's free advice or free anything, right? It's just letting them know we're here to help you. If we can move your pain points, that's our goal.
Yeah, and the thing I love about the Learning Center when I looked at it, and it's a great example. I get the sense in the B2B space, there's this somewhat older model of very long webinars that touch on, several topics, but it seems like you, in conjunction with your marketing team, have gotten the right narrative that, this content needs to be snackable. Answer one question, give one answer to that. And that gives you a lot of different content as well.
Yes, we wanted to really make it like 30 minutes max. So it's either somebody's lunch hour or a small commute, and then we try and speak in layman terms, and not to offend anybody, but customs has a lot of acronyms, and it has, it's a complex world, and we're trying to simplify it to the best of our ability to help, people that, are not familiar with customs. It's a love-hate relationship. I love it personally. Obviously, I've been here this long, but it is complex too. And when you incorporate people like, oh, I'll ship you that, no problem. And, they line up the truck and everything. They're like, oh, but we forgot about that customs piece, right? Like you actually have to have a broker, right? So that's where we try and explain the process for you.
Yeah, for sure. It also sounds like your team has worked together to break that up into beginner, intermediate, and maybe more advanced pieces of content.
Yes, absolutely. For the people that are in our industry, we have a lot of, specialists in trade compliance, and now they want to dig a little bit further into how do I complete a free trade agreement, or do my goods qualify? What's the percentages? Now we're getting to the nitty gritty, and that's where we can, give a little more expertise. So we have all different levels for people.
And I think you also mentioned to me your participation as a group, I think more than just yourself, in webinars, in seminars, and you've got a pretty interesting niche as well. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your strategy there and how you get out into the world to increase and foster those relationships.
Yeah, so the way we foster them is really staying in touch and answering the questions that the client has so that we understand where their pain points are. And then we, as a team, we want to see who specializes in that. Let's listen to them first, and that's the key thing, is listen to the customer, right? It's hard for a salesperson, oh, we got the best team and we can do this and we can do that. How about we just listen to them and then give them really good solutions? And sometimes, yes, I have to bring in certain people that specialize in that, right? Because we have our experts, and they're able to, help it depending on the line of business. You have an issue with freight, I'm going to get you the freight people in there. You got an issue with an audit that went wrong, or you didn't like the results, there's my compliance team. So we really like to make sure that we have the right team together and that the customer feels like, yeah, this makes sense, or yeah, this is going to work, right? And now we start building the relationship. Right. So we could be doing all that from the time they maybe downloaded something and realized that was really good information. I think this company could actually help us. And come from that piece.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that I love about what you're saying here is, and quite often in sales and marketing, it's someone just downloaded one piece of content and then a hard sell begins, skipping over all of the soft touches that you're putting in between to actually just use fairly simple tools, right? You've got LinkedIn, you mentioned Twitter, you mentioned resharing news and information from your Buckland LinkedIn business page, and then your resource center. And you had mentioned before, what's your process? LinkedIn to email or text? I believe you mentioned something like that.
Yes. So if I share something on LinkedIn, I'll use that as an example. They'll send me a private message, somebody, that I've, never dealt with, and that's fine. And they're like, oh, ask me a question. And then we kind of go back and forth. And then they say, well, do you mind if I can call you? Do you have time next week or tomorrow or whatever? And then we'll exchange, whatever their preference is. They can send me their cell number or their email address. Then we start the communication, right? But I was actually shocked. The more I started sharing that, the more I was getting traction back, and like, can I call you? Or do you have time for me? Here's my email. It's just been great, and it's really zero effort. Really.
Exactly. And I think this is one of the things that we see when we work in the B2B space in several industries is I feel like people are overthinking the medium. Like there's some I need to act differently on LinkedIn than I would if I was at a conference, cocktail party, or meet and greet
Yeah,
where, and I think, what you've done is just looked at it in its most basic form and said, well, this is what I might do in person.
absolutely. And I really find too, prior when we were allowed to travel everywhere, however, we still do it remotely or virtually, I should say, is
Mm-hmm.
attending events. Sometimes customs will, have events. We are a woman-owned company, so we have We Connect and the women's Weeby, they call them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just go to the events or an automotive event. I will not only see my customers there who think it's amazing that their brokers they're supporting and being educated, but
Mm-hmm.
potential clients going, oh, geez, there's a broker. Look at Buckland's here. I have a couple questions. I have a pain point, maybe not related to the seminar, but I was there and they
Mm-hmm.
saw me, or they saw the Buckland logo or the name. And that's as well another way of getting our name out there, and even to have the opportunity to bid on an RFQ. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we don't even talk to sales, and there's contracts or they're stuck in a contract. They will keep my name. And when it
Mm-hmm.
comes up for that time, they'll remember that they've met somebody at another broker to put me on a list, bidding list.
For sure, for sure. And
Yeah.
and like I said, I think the brilliant part about what you've managed to do is really from a simplicity perspective is solution sell off of your own personal LinkedIn account.
Yes.
You don't need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You don't need a premium. One of the most annoying things I think we can agree is the abuse of in-mail. You connect with somebody and immediately they're sending you. I get sometimes people send me 3, 5, 7 different pushy emails, and I don't even know who they are.
Yes, I will attest that
Hmm.
I do receive those as well,
Yep.
and I thank them. I'm still, thank them for the message, or might say, I can actually guide you to somebody in our office that would be able to help you because I get all kinds of questions, right?
Hmm.
But that's okay. You can filter through those.
Hmm. For sure. And how often do you dip into your content library? And for anybody listening, I would encourage you to go to buckland.com. You can click on the learning section and just have a look at the variety of content that they have available there. How often do you dip into that to continue those conversations?
Um, is really I mean,
Hmm.
we reach out to most of them. There's a lot of our actual clients that are grabbing them, so marketing's
Hmm.
filtering through them. However, we do
Sure.
try and reach out to all the new emails that are not logged into our Salesforce or something, right?
Hmm.
Or if we've already reached out once and there's no reply, I will not bother again. I kind of go softly and just see if they need anything. If there's no response or anything, I don't pursue it.
Sure, but if I met you, or I saw you on a panel on a webinar, for example, and then reached
Yeah.
out to you either via comment or a LinkedIn message and said, "Hey, I've got some questions about importing from the U.S." You have the ability to go back into your content library and quickly share something with them as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would
So
we would
that whole content library you've got is really a treasure trove for
yeah,
you to go and mix and match however you want.
absolutely. Or maybe
Hmm.
out of that conversation they start talking about something. I said, actually, I have a podcast or I have a webinar. Let's pull it up. We'll snip through here and I can stop it and we can or explain it a little bit more in detail, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And the reason I kind of led us there is, with all our fancy tools as marketers, and your marketing team has all the fancy tools, oftentimes there's automations that assume people are going to want content in a certain order or a certain way.
Yeah.
And what I love is that you've got this library that you can pull from so you can go and do what you do most naturally to you. If that doesn't sound a little clumsy, but.
No, no, I
Mhm.
not at all, Dan. It's exactly right, and it is valuable content. I mean,
Mhm.
that content in there is shared by many, many people of Buckland.
Yeah.
Again, depending on the expertise, right? And they've been hand selected and what they're most knowledgeable at, and can speak freely and comfortably. So we'd love to help our customers. That
Yeah.
know that we're always there and we're giving them free information. And then again, it's a bonus for potential clients going, wow, look at everything that they're sharing. maybe I'd like to talk to them.
Yeah, and one other thing I noticed when we began talking is, in our world of digital marketing, we spend a lot of time talking about aligning marketing and sales and account management, getting everybody on the same page, so you don't have a, pardon me, a sales team that looks at the content as kind of a pain. You guys seem to have aligned philosophically as an organization around this. Was that something that came naturally because of the way your team operates, or was that something that had to be, instilled over time? Like, how did you get there? Or is this just how it's always been?
We always get the experts, obviously, to speak in any of the webinars, right, or any of the podcasts, because, for example, my forte is the Canadian piece. So, I've done many in-person and virtual seminars that, because my knowledge is based in any questions that are asked, you would be able to, effectively answer it. So we have always used our team because our people are so strong, and the complexity that we're going to say the professionals to take care of that one. So just collaborated. It just worked out the best for our customers that way.
Okay, great. So we know when a new client comes on board that there's this honeymoon phase that happens at the very beginning of every client relationship. But, issues can come up, especially in the early days of new accounts. What are some of the signals that you look for to spot discontent or maybe issues before they happen? And what do you do to head that off at the pass and resolve those issues? Because as we know, retention is incredibly difficult and incredibly important.
Oh, absolutely, Dan. It's so true. It's absolutely, retaining a client is more difficult than actually getting the client. So obviously, as an national account manager, you are through the whole transition, and you've already spoken now quite many times, not only through email but also FaceTiming. So when we're picking the right team or the right analyst to handle their account, we're picking the right personalities. If we see there's a bit of a conflict, or, because I'm copied in a lot of this stuff, maybe we need to switch the person that they're working with, and it's okay, that happens. And we'll just put another person on the account. We also want to make sure if there was an error, or you can see that the client's upset, the way maybe it was handled, we log all of our we call them a non-conformance. And it's a personal, it's called a SANA that we use. And we like to log it. Number one, we have to ensure that it was rectified and that we have, a process in place for it not to happen. So number one, make sure that the customer is dealt with properly. And number two, use it as a learning guide for Buckland, that going forward, that we know that, what happened and how we can not let it happen again.
Right.
So we do like to do that as well.
And then if you do have a client that's discontented, you as the account manager, what are some of the things that you go through with them in order to get things back on track?
Yeah. What I like to do is I like to stay in touch in the daily operations, for me personally, so that I can monitor how many questions, and what are the questions. And I mean, a lot of times we have to go back to the customer if we're missing, data elements, or if we're missing something, right, or something didn't go through. So at that point, I will contact the customer and say, hey, I've noticed that, we're continually asking kind of the same questions. I believe that your shipper hasn't been completing the paperwork correctly. So I think I'm just going to contact them if it's okay. And I kind of like to guide them on how to complete customs paperwork. They'd be shocked. They're like, wow, you would actually go to that extent. Well, I want to stop the inquiries, because I don't want to hound you. So let's find what the core problem is and let's fix it. So you got to do that problem solving.
And you're being very proactive, reaching out to them before they have to reach out to you saying, hey, I'm noticing there's an issue here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that I think goes a very, very long way in terms of long-term relationship building. They know that, these things are complex, but that you are on their team and there to make sure things are successful.
Yeah. You have to build trust, right? They liked you from the beginning. You hit it off really well. They gave you the account, right? You were there for the transition. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to make sure that everything is the way we said we were going to handle it. And if you're upset, then I'd like to help you. So knowing that when there's an issue, it's number one, dealt immediately, or I should say addressed immediately, and that we have a solution fairly quickly. depending on the circumstance. They are very happy then and don't want to leave because they have never been taken care of that way. Communication is key.
Mm-hmm. No, that's some great advice. And like I said, Anka, thank you so much for joining us today. You've given our audience a lot to think about. In particular, of note is how you've simplified the process of social selling into how you would normally converse. And I think that's that's a gem in and of itself. That can be a game changer for everybody on the sales and account management side of business.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, Dan. I thank you for the invite. It was great.
Well, you're welcome, and we hope to see you again soon to give us
Absolutely.
some more knowledge. And that's it, everybody, for this edition of Live at the Hive Digital Marketing from the Trenches. We hope you took something away from this, and we will see you next week's live. Same B time, same B channel. Peace.